Um, there's a poem called Brendon Gallacher by Jackie Kay. I don't know what there is to say about this poem. I mean, I feel like this poem, a lot of the poems that the AQA anthology have chosen for you are very, they lend themselves to interpretation. They're stories. They're stories that make themselves really available to you. Or like the sing-song, they're a song where you kind of watch a character celebrate or emote. Brendon Gallagher is it reminds me of like a ballad, a kind of story poem that has a particular rhythm, like a song that's told. Um, it makes me think about things like how your friends compliment you. They're the other you, sometimes the better you. Like in this poem, for example, the speaker is Scottish, and this friend, Brendon Gallagher, is Irish, and everything your friend is kind of completes this absence within you. Uh, this is different than a lover or someone you love, as in sing-song. This is about friendship, and a character really singing about them. The funny thing about this poem is whether the friend is an imaginary friend, and here we get a different consideration over what is the role of the imagination, and what is it when we see a character that's actually dreaming or deluded within the poem. Um, is this a poem about love and imagination? Is this a poem about the past, like some of the nostalgic poems we've looked at, like Horse Whisperer? Or is it about a moment where a character changed and was never really the same? I think that the more poems you read, the more you'll see that certain themes are constantly returned to. And this is the way that some poets write, actually, is poems. I think a critic, I believe it's Northrop Frye, but it could be someone else, said, poems are written basically from other poems. They set the ground work in terms of theme and technique, and when you read more poems, you start translating what you've read into your own register. So this poem is not complex. Although one thing is particularly interesting, this idea that this is an imaginary character was something that didn't occur to me multiple readings of the poem. I wasn't that interested in the poem, and I wasn't that drawn into it, and then I discovered that line, "and he died then." And that's the line really that started getting me interested in this poem. That may be the case for you. As I said, the solution to that is to read as many great poems as you can, read poems that you enjoy, and the more you do, the quicker you'll be able to read poems and decide whether you like them or not, which is of course important, but also decide what they're saying and how they're saying it. Brendon Gallacher by Jackie Kay. He was 7 and I was 6, my Brendon Gallacher. He was Irish and I was Scottish, my Brendon Gallacher. His father was in prison, he was a cat burglar. My father was a Communist Party full-time worker. He had 6 brothers and I had 1, my Brendon Gallacher. He would hold my hand and take me by the river, where we'd talk all about his family being poor. He'd got his mom out of Glasgow when he got older. A wee holiday someplace nice, someplace far. I tell my mom about my Brendon Gallacher, how his mom drank and his daddy was a cat burglar, and she'd say, "Why not have him round to dinner?" No, I'd say, "He's got big holes in his trousers." I like meeting him by the burn in the open air. Then one day after we'd been friends for 2 years, one day when it was pouring and I was indoors, my mum says to me, "I was talking to Miss Moyer, who lives next door to your Brendon Gallacher. Didn't you say his address was 24 Novar? She says there are no Gallachers at 24 Novar. There never have been any Gallachers next door. And he died then, my Brendon Gallacher, flat out on my bedroom floor. His spiky hair, his impish grin, his funny flapping ear. Oh, Brendon, oh, my Brendon Gallacher." Okay, this poem is about a character. It could be the poet, but we're not. I'm always wary of that kind of reading. The speaker of the poem. tells a story in a kind of rhythmical song-like ballad way about a boy named Brendon Gallacher, and he was Irish, the speaker was Scottish. His father was in prison, a cat burglar, and the speaker's father was in the Communist Party and a worker. He had 6 brothers, and the speaker only had 1. They're kind of mirrors of each other, and they spend intimate and close time together. They're very small, so there's no sense of a love affair. There's a real sense of friendship. And the mother's fascinated by the stories of this boy. Obviously, he's got these elaborate tales, and mother asks that he come to dinner one night. And of course, the speaker says, absolutely not. You know, he's poor, and he wouldn't dream of coming. And then one day, the mother asks, after Brendon Gallacher, to someone who's purportedly lives next to them. And there are no people with that name living at that address. And there had never been any people with that name living at that address. And the way I used to read the poems, oh, maybe he's a homeless kid, but I think I misread the poem, because actually it's that line, and he never died, and he died then, my Brendon Gallacher. So in this moment, this character dies for the speaker, and everything about him, this very particular, envisioned story, narrative, physicality of this character all evaporates and dies. And I think it's interesting that it's in the ballad form, because the ballad will often be a story of tragedy or loss. And in this one, Jackie Kay has adapted it to the death of someone imaginary. And even the signing off is one of a bereft loss. But and who knows? Maybe it is a loss. Imaginary friends are important to us as well.